Live, 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 Uziel's live for you to join along. Live, 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 Uziel's live for you to join along. What's up, everybody? We are here for regular Tuesday live streams. We had a live stream on Sunday, but we are going to continue doing our regular podcast. Sorry, not podcast, but broadcast for Tuesdays. I'm just going to check the sound here to see if I'm sounding good. Sounds good. Let me try one more thing here. Sorry, I'm a little on delay. Okay, I think we're good. All right. Okay, fine. All right, let's get to it. So today we are going to react, since we can't do concerts and live stream. We can't do a live stream on concerts because of the 3 weeks. We are going to continue doing interviews from the singers and the production sides of Jewish music. And I wanted to do this episode for a very long time. We are going to react to a podcast episode with Yisroel Lamm. Yisroel Lamm, who, of course, has been the guy of the Nagio Orchestra, the Has concerts, so many compositions of singers, so many intros of a lot of songs of Jewish music, and I really wanted to do this for a very long time. And the 3 weeks where you're not listening to music is the perfect time for it. So let's get to it. I'm really excited. As usual, we're going to go through the comment section in between a few of the segments in the podcast. The podcast interview. Please comment below for any shout outs and questions and some just things to just talk about. That's what I love about the streams more than just the reaction, is to talk to you guys. Just talk about Jewish music. That's what I love to do. Or just talk about any other things. It would be amazing. So, yeah. So let's get to the comments. So here we have from at Levi Music 26, love from India, love from Ukraine, and love from Texas. So where are you right now, Levi? I have no idea where you're referring to, but yeah. So let's get to it. We're going to get into this episode. Again, I don't have a producer with me today, so if you guys need the volume higher or lower on me or the interview, just please comment below. When I get a producer to help me out with these things, we don't need to do that, but I really appreciate for all the feedback that you guys give. So let's get to it. I didn't properly set up before the stream, so just give me a second while I pull up the podcast episode over here. Let's do the settings here. Over here. And I think we're good. Full screen, just checking over here. Then I think we are good. All right. All right, guys. Let's get to the episode over here.
It is a huge honor for me to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Can you start off, I guess, with giving just a little bit of your background, where you're from, where you grew up, and as much of your childhood?
Okay, I grew up in Williamsburg, went to Yeshiva Tarvadas all the way through. I also went to Brooklyn and City College, where I got some degrees in mechanical engineering. While I was still in Yeshiva, I drifted into music. I'll get to that.
Okay, there's a fly here that is annoying me, so if I'm just clapping every so often, just be patient with me, okay?
The story of how I got into the music, because it is a story. I was doing music and engineering at the same time. In other words, I was going to class one night and I would play a wedding another night. And eventually I had to make a decision, which I did. Obviously, I decided to become a musician. The story of how I got into music, it was Basher. Definitely we can see the Yad Hashem. And as I look back at it, I don't say that one should say, well, I'm seeing the Yad Hashem and this is how I have to go. I don't think any of us are capable of doing it. But looking back at it, definitely I was guided. It really all started when I was 14 years old. And I was finished being a camper and I had to start becoming a staff member. And I wanted to go to Camp Aguda to become, some sort of staff member. At that time, I was into drawing. Music was not part of my life then. And I wanted to go to camp. Now in camp, talent is currency. If you have a talent,
you're in.
You can do something there. And I applied to Camp Aguda. And I was rejected because there were like 1,000 applications. Wow. But I knew Mike Tress. I davened in the Agud in Williamsburg, and Mike Tress was a good friend of my parents. Mike Tress was the president of Agud at the time. And he heard that I was rejected. I remember he called me up, he put his arms around me, and he said, I heard you were rejected, we're going to correct that. And a week later, I got an acceptance letter, and I went to Camp Aguda, and I was there for 2 years. The second year, I met Yisroel Teitelbaum, that's Eli Teitelbaum's younger brother. He was in camp, and he was playing trumpet, sort of. And he was finished. Basically, he was finished. He would let the trumpet lie around, and people would pick up and blow it, and I picked up and blew it, and I got some notes out of it. And actually, by the time the summer was over, I was able to play a few songs.
You just taught yourself completely.
Yeah, and it sounded pretty awful, but I was able to do it. And he said to me, Yisroel, you got to get a trumpet, you're a natural. That was the last thing on my mind. And anyway, when camp was over, and at that time, my grandfather had a farm in New Haven. So camp was over, and we went to my grandfather's farm. And one day I opened up the towel closet, and you'll never guess what was there.
Trumpet.
A trumpet. Again, the Yad Hashem. What's this, Heidi? What's this? He says when he was in the army, he used to play trumpet.
Wow. And you never knew that up until you
I never knew that at all. Wow. And it was really in rusty shape, but I got it into shape, and I played a little bit, and I got interested in it. By the time we got back to the city, I went and rented a trumpet. And about a year later, I was starting to play at a fair, bar mitzvahs, and I got to know Eli Teitelbaum.
Did you teach yourself to read notes, or you were playing by ear? How?
Yeah, I taught myself. Eventually, I did take a few lessons on trumpet, and just from there, I drifted into arranging and playing at weddings. And at one point, yes, I did make my decision that engineering wasn't in my heart; it wasn't in my soul. Music was in my heart and in my soul, and I became a musician.
As a child, do you have any earliest musical memories? What kind of music did you grow up listening to? Okay,
I clearly remember growing up listening to Benzin Schenker's records. I liked his records because the music was of the highest caliber. There were some others, but I think Benzin's was he had Hanan Wintonitz, I think, was his arranger, and I really enjoyed it. And I remember as a teenager, I saved up enough money and I bought a stereo set.
Wow.
I remember, I did listen to radio music. I liked Paul Moriat. I was always interested in orchestra music. And I just remember thinking, seriously, Jewish music needs this. It needs this kind of quality.
Yep. How old were you when that happened?
I would say 15, 16. But there was nothing I could do about it at that point.
Because you knew you liked it, but you didn't necessarily know how to do it yet.
I wasn't in the music world.
Right.
First of all, I was doing drawing. That was my talent. And
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to mention it, but Yisroel Lamm actually did a bunch of album covers early on in his music career for the singers or concerts. I'm not sure which ones. I remember him talking about it at the roundtable reaction that we did. But yeah, he's a great artist.
I expressed a desire to get involved in music. Like, oh, you're an artist, what are you going to do? Get involved in music. So I need David to direct me to be able to get into the musical world.
For maybe not people who aren't in the music industry, can you break down exactly what it is that you do? I know there's a couple of, you obviously play trumpet, but you're also an arranger and a conductor. So can you explain what those are and what you do?
Okay, so an arranger, you're right, a lot of people don't know what an arranger does.
And then they don't give enough credit for any of it. So
Well,
that's my hot take.
People will say something like, I don't know, what do they need you for? Just give them the music and let them play, But I say,
Again, this fly is so annoying.
where does the music comes from? A song is just a melody. And the way I like to explain it thematically is a song needs a universe to live in. It needs a place to exist. Otherwise, it's just a plain da-da-da-da. But to bring it to life, it needs a place to exist. And that's what the arranger does. He decides, or he'll work with the producer and the singer, of course, but he'll decide and try to work out what the song is going to sound like, what universe it lives in. Is it a pop song? Is it a rock song? Is it what kind of instrument? What is it going to sound like? Right. And that's what the arranger does. He'll make the introduction, the interludes in between, and eventually it's got to go to musicians to play, and they need parts. It's harmony. A melody has just one line, right? But an arrangement has many things going on at the same time.
Sure.
And that's really what the arranger and the orchestrator does. He divides the parts among the musicians so it sounds like an arrangement.
And does that, I guess, there's some sort of process that happens in your head first and foremost, where you hear or imagine this happening, and then you have to get that out of your head onto paper or I guess a computer. What's that process? How does that work?
Yeah, you need to hear it first.
Right.
And people often ask me, well, how do you hear it? And it's no big deal. If you're going to speak, if you're going to say something, you're going to hear that sentence in your head first.
Before you say it, right?
Or you should at least. You should think about what you're saying before you say it. You hear the arrangement, and then you take what you hear and you put it down on paper or to the computer.
Right.
And the advantage of the computer is the days when we put it on paper, we really didn't hear it till we went to the studio or till the concert or rehearsal. And I guess some people are better than others imagining, what they hear.
Sure.
But as often as not, what you thought you heard isn't really what happens.
Sure.
But with the...
Yeah, I know. It's so funny how much you speak to composers and singers, and you go and they, just as much as they actually do put out music, not necessarily do you audiences feel like it's good, but the same amount that they put out and publish is also the same amount that they just never see the compositions or songs or projects that never see the light of day. Just fly over here. For example, I spoke to a singer. I don't want to say his name because of the story, but I spoke to a singer. I asked him how many compositions. I asked him, did you compose any of your own songs? He said, yeah, for sure. I said, are any of them published? He said, no. He gave me a really definitive no, which is funny.
The computer, you're hearing it. You're hearing it as you're doing it.
Being that I, grew up, or I guess in my teen years, I already had a computer. I was able to pick a string sound, as realistic or not realistic as it was, and say, okay, let me record that and show it to someone or send them, MIDI files. And then, so it was a lot easier, even though it wasn't like hearing it in the room. I was able to get some idea of I think this will work, or I think it won't work.
Yeah, well, sometimes if you're not doing it all the time, this is experience.
Sure.
If you're not doing it all the time, you're just putting things down and you're saying, let's hear how it's going to sound. But the real way to do it is to really hear it in your head and then put down what you're hearing. Just like a painter might go, I see that, and I put it onto canvas.
Right.
Or I imagine something in my head and I put it there. That's really all you're doing. It's not magic.
I found some of my father's, I guess, original manuscripts from like when he was, I don't know, 20 years old. It's really crazy to just see like someone actually taking a pen and writing it down. And there's almost like an added value to something where it's like a physical thing as opposed to, okay, I made a file, don't like it, delete it, it disappeared into thin air. It's very cool to find.
Well, you know, for a long time I resisted it.
What, the computer?
The computer. What I used to do was, in the olden days, before the computer started, I used to write it onto a score and send it to a copyist to have the parts extracted for each individual musician. And it would often come back, there were a lot of mistakes, and you couldn't correct the mistakes till you heard it in the studio or at the rehearsal. When computers started becoming, I would say, even popular, I said, you know, there's something about that computer, it's cold. You really need to do it the old-fashioned way. And that was such a mistake, because eventually I met somebody, and he said to me, you know, a musician from Yisroel, and he said to me, you know, you should go to Finale, to computer. That was a program at the time. And I gave him my whole story. And he said, you know, you'd be able to do a lot more if you went to computer. And the way he said it, it made an impression on me. And I went to computer.
And when things were on paper, let's say if, I don't know, the day before a performance, someone wanted to change key, you would have to write
you were stuck.
Right. You're really stuck.
Right. And if you wanted to transpose something or make corrections, you were stuck.
That's a crazy thought. It's like a whole other reality.
Yeah, that's. I would say I would divide the advantages of a computer into two sections. That you just said, that it's just such an easy tool, makes life easier.
Sure.
And the other one is that you could hear what you're doing. You're living it while you're creating it.
Right.
But don't forget that the technology, it's digital technology. Computers, all digital. That technology that made all of this possible also had a pretty detrimental effect on the whole CD business.
For sure.
So it's a double-edged sword.
Yep. I mean, there's pros and cons to everything when technology is advancing in any industry, but the music industry, the way people make parnasso or the way people produce things, besides for just technology-wise, when it comes to financial and production, practical production-wise, is a whole different ballgame. And I think what causes a lot of singers to leave the business when that phase of technology really pivoted, when the Jewish music industry really pivoted, was the ability to adapt. I mean, there's a lot of singers that, like David Gabe, he hasn't been singing and doing stuff for 10 years, and now he's back and doing a project that's going to come out after 3 weeks with Sissy Wallner. And I'm not saying that's his case. I'm just giving an example that a lot of people in what happened to him, what he ended up doing, where taking this break or just leaving the business entirely, is because of their ability. I'm not saying David Gabe. I'm saying a lot of these singers that end up in that predicament didn't have the ability to adapt to the new world of digitizing your music and Spotify and CDs not being a thing, and maybe USBs. Even now, the USBs are not even a thing anymore either. Just all these different aspects of evolution of Jewish music production.
I think also in general, when you look at like technology as a whole, the idea of streaming music, it's very hard to argue with the fact that music has almost lost a sense of value. If I can, in 1 second, skip through millions of songs, then this record that someone spent 12 months on making, used to go and buy it and learn every single song and read the notes on the back, and now it's like, oh, I don't like that song. Let me check out 17 other artists in a second.
In the aspect of finding what you like, I think that's true, but also I personally appreciate the behind the scenes of, let's say, Alvin Fried now just as much, if not even more, than when the CDs come out, because there's a lot more open discussion and a lot more eyes and and a lot more open, what's the word for it? But basically, because of where we are now, where all the behind the scenes is broadcasted, people are always talking about the preparation of YouTube music, the production. More people are more knowledgeable than ever of the production side of things. So I think you also have to keep account on that aspect, that even though you could go to any song at the tip of your fingers, but just as much you could look into the behind the scenes and appreciate the work and production that happened in these songs just as much with the tip of your fingers.
Yeah, I guess like anything, there's...
Well, if I can get political for a minute.
Please.
I remember reading in one of the computer magazines, I forgot the fellow's name. He wrote a column in the back of PC Magazine, and he said, it's coming, the digital age is coming, and it's going to change the whole music business. And I think the way it changed it for us is that there are a lot of composers out there who aren't performers. And the only reason they made albums was to make money. And they're not making money anymore, so they're not doing it. So we're losing their work. The ones that are making albums these days are performers, and they're basically doing it to advertise themselves.
Card.
It's a glorified business
very
card.
expensive business card.
Right. So, and even so, they're making less albums.
Right.
But nevertheless, the music industry is thriving. There's so much music being made.
Well, I think what's interesting is that regardless of what happens with technology or recording, you can see that, I guess, people's desire and need for music, in a live setting and a coming together and seeing a show or a kumsitz or in shul has always been there and will always be there. There's something very powerful about that. The way in which we record it might change, but in terms of what it is, it's still there.
Well, it's so easy to make an album. In those days, it was really very hard. You had to go to a studio, pay exorbitant rates per hour per studio. Right. Now you just in somebody's basement. So there's a lot of music being made. So that's the good thing about it.
It's crazy actually. On this,
but also I feel like you could tell though that the quality does drop when people do it on their own than when they go to a studio. For example, the songs that I do, whether I personally worked on it or I went to other people to work on it for me, or I went to people that are starting out in the industry to do it for me, or I go to people that have been in the industry for a long time to do stuff for me, you could now, when I look back at those things, I could tell, yeah, the quality could... The quality of different aspects, whether it's practicality or production or composition or arrangements, are different. But sometimes, and it happens a lot, the people that are smaller or things that you could do yourself, you could definitely tell that you are doing better than the big mainstream productions are doing. Most times not. But it happens a lot that it comes out like that. So,
iPad, they've now put the Logic Pro, the recording software. This is now powerful enough to have the entire thing on there. I can take this with me. It has a built-in microphone. I could technically record a whole album on this. Do you remember the first time you conducted a symphony orchestra?
Oh, I sure do.
Yeah. How did it feel? Tell me about that.
Okay, the first time I conducted a symphony orchestra was in Eretz Yisroel.
Ooh, wow.
I was in Camp Stay Chemed, and Eli Teitelbaum started the Camp Stay Chemed concerts.
Okay.
The first year, it was a big success. Eretz Yisrael had never seen anything like it. There were concerts for ordinary people, but for the Dati people, for the Haredim, there was no concert. And Eli one year made 4 concerts, 2 in Heichal HaTarbut in Tel Aviv, and 2 in Binyan Oman, Yerushalayim. It was jammed. There were more people outside waiting for tickets than were able to get in.
How old were you at this time?
My early 20s.
Wow.
And I remember the first night I conducted, the first concert, it was a smaller band, I conducted without a jacket. Just the shirt, everybody has to show, just right? And people started saying, no, so the second night I wore a jacket. At the second year, Eli decided to upgrade it, and he hired a symphony orchestra.
Wow.
And I had to arrange for symphony orchestra. I had never arranged for symphony orchestra.
How did you know what to do?
Well, I hit the books. Well, I always listened. I always listened to classical music ever since I was a teenager. My real love is classical music. So I had it in my head. I had to get a hold of some books because I didn't have formal training. You know, that's one of my biggest regrets, that I never had formal training for orchestration. But I got some books and stayed up many, many nights and churned out some symphonic.
That's like also another thing where a lot of people ask like, oh, how do I start out in the business? Not just in music, also in other businesses. They think that the first thing you need to do is try to put yourself into things, which is true. You always should say yes to, you should start out saying more yeses than nos when it comes to opportunities, but just as that is a priority, you should also prioritize the fact that you have to do the research, because just because you know something and then you decide within yourself you should be ready to go in, that's a good step, but also that shouldn't stop from you to keep the research, looking up things, what's new, what's not, what's getting old, what new techniques you could adapt, what old techniques are still good and still viable. You know, you should, not just music, but in any industry and in any side of business, you should always be researching and looking and studying.
Sonic arrangements, pretty crude, but it worked. You know.
Do you not feel that if you had training, your sound that so many of us know and grew up on would have been different?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think I just would have known more.
No more, okay.
I would have known more, and the things that I struggled to learn on my own or through trial and error,
You could have learned faster,
I would have
maybe.
learned faster.
Right.
I mean, I know many people, many musicians who have all sorts of degrees and all of
Right.
that, and it doesn't, you know, it's got to come from the soul. You have to,
100%.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the soul in school, but I think both are necessary.
I love that. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. It's great. It's a great line. I went to, when I was 18, 19, went to a music school in Israel, and I didn't speak Hebrew, so I spent most of the time not understanding what was going on. And I made a bunch of friends, didn't learn much, but it kind of drove home to me that really what I had to offer was here. And yes, there is a place for, you know, for notation and theory, but first of all, if you don't have that, especially with technology, it doesn't mean that you can't be involved in the music industry. And second of all, even with that, if there isn't soul in it, then you're kind of missing something a little bit, I feel.
There are some people who say that they think if they get training, it's going to detract from what they do. It's almost like the question you just asked me.
Right.
But they thought it would like destroy them, ruin them.
Right.
And I think it's a mistake.
Right. I think the only kind of situation where that might be correct is if you look at a lot of kids, or if you ask the average person that you bump into on the street, do you play a musical instrument? Almost 50% of people, I would say, will say, I used to. And then at age 12, it became way too much like an extra thing I had to do homework for with a strict teacher. So I got rid of it. And I always say, well, if a kid shows interest in music and you say, oh, forget the theory for a second, forget all of this. Let's play songs. Let me show you how to, even by ear, just copy me, create a relationship with the instrument. And if by the time you're 14 or 15, you want to do that, great. Bring in the Bach, bring in, and at that point, there's more of a love, a connection. But I don't know. I'm not an expert.
But if you really love it, and we're talking about that small percentage of the population that really loves, I mean, everybody's doing a lot of different things, but what percentage ends up really loving it, no matter what you do?
Right.
Let's say a doctor. There are plenty of doctors out there that are miserable, but there's a small percentage of doctors really love what they do. And when you have that love for that, there's no limit to what you're going to want to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, they say one of the signs of intelligence is that you want to learn more. An intelligent person wants to learn more.
Yeah.
So, there are no excuses.
Yeah. I feel that way about music production and mixing. Like, it really is. I think it's part of the joy of it, is that it never ends. We spoke about arranging for a second, but conducting, I think that's the biggest mystery. What exactly are you doing?
Okay, in
I love that question because when people ask conductors that question, every conductor has a different answer. Every conductor doesn't have a same motivation or the same. It's not about technique. It's not about how they do it. It's just about like what is the goal when they're conducting and what is conducting for.
simple terms, you're setting the tempo.
Okay.
You know, in shul, you know, the guy sitting over there is at one speed, and this
Yeah.
guy saying a kaddish, he's already, you're right. If there was somebody able to signal everybody to stay together, that's really what the conductor does. That's the simplest thing that the conductor does, especially in a large orchestra. They're far apart from each other. They're not even hearing each other at the same time because sound travels at a finite speed.
Right.
But if there's somebody who's giving the beat, so
You're
everybody
the
can
anchor,
follow.
really.
What?
You're the anchor, really, for like the
Right.
whole.
This is the speed we're going at. We're all doing it together. Then tempos change. It gets
Sure.
faster and slower. Somebody's got to conduct that tempo change. So that's really what you see at a concert. Honestly speaking, there are a lot of conductors who don't know how to conduct. So what do? I'll get back to that in a minute. So if you go to a concert and you watch carefully, you'll see that most of the musicians aren't looking at the conductor.
Right,
They're following the concertmaster. The concertmaster is the first
First
violinist.
violinist, right?
You'll often see the conductor shake hands with the concertmaster. I do that all the time because they're following him, and he's part of being a concertmaster is he knows how to conduct. He makes with his violin, and everybody follows him. Okay, but really what a conductor does, his job is really at the rehearsal. He's interpreting the music, especially classical music, by 5 different Beethoven symphony numbered 5. And each one will sound drastically different.
Right.
In fact, to the point where you say, this performance I hate and this performance I love. And that's because each conductor has his idea, his interpretation of the piece, and at rehearsals, that's where he really is doing his thing.
Right. So, for example, if it says,
So if conductor is just simply doing tempo, then that would be the main reason why he's on stage without the rehearsals, without it being the rehearsals. But then, yeah, I guess so. I guess that's the main reason. I just thought maybe there would be more than just tempo, but it is. But tempo is important. I mean, it's almost like it's almost like singing. Like, I personally love if I have words in front of me of the words that I'm singing, whatever I'm singing at gigs. Even if I know those words already and I won't make a mistake, it's still a good thing to be relieved about when you have the words in front of you. It's just easier, and it's more and it's more insurance. Like in your mind, you just feel more guaranteed to be successful. So I guess when you have a conductor there also in front of you, even if it's not rehearsals, it is more about the nerves and guarantee of success for the musicians, not unconsciously, just in general, just for the musicians to be more calmer and more relaxed when their leader is with them on stage.
play the next 4 bars. I don't know. Give me an example of a.
Okay, Beethoven's Fifth. Ba 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 bum.
Right.
One guy's you're gonna hear ba 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 bum, and the next guy you're gonna hear ba 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 bum.
Right.
And you could say, well, ba 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 bum sounds right.
Right.
And I'm gonna say, no, it should be ba 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 bum. And that's what's so much fun about it. But that's really what the
So
conductor.
that every dynamic and expression, all those things are open to interpretation. There's no. Right.
Yeah.
It's funny because I always, think about classical music and it's like, well, everyone is getting these same notes. So, why would you go and, like, what difference does it make if he plays it or he plays it? But that's really the answer. Right? There's a lot of interpretation. And
Yeah.
How does it feel to be in that situation when there's, 5,000 people behind you?
Yeah, okay, so you asked me how I felt when I conducted the symphony for the first time. Okay, so I'll be honest about it. Just before I went out on stage, I thought to myself, in the back of my mind, I had a dream that one day I'm going to conduct the symphony orchestra. And in a sense, my dream is now coming true.
Right.
But I don't want to go out there because I'm scared out of my pants.
Yeah. Wow.
But he called me out, and they announced my name, and I went out and I did it. And it's great. When you stand in front of an orchestra and you give a downbeat, and the orchestra responds, it's a good feeling.
Are there any recordings or videos of that?
Stay Chemed, I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay.
But then it really started for me. Then it was put away. It was filed. It was about 20 years later that Shia Mendlowitz had the idea to do a serious.
Wait, how long after?
For me, then it was put away. It was filed. It was about 20 years later that Shia Mendlowitz had the idea to do a serious symphonic project. And then I really took myself to task, and I studied orchestration, classical orchestration, seriously. We went to Eretz Yisroel and we recorded the Philharmonic Experience, which till this day is my favorite project.
Wow, I was going to ask you if this is something that stands out.
Right, and we recorded with the Jerusalem Symphony in Crown Auditorium.
I actually performed with them. It was in the Jerusalem Theatre?
In the Jerusalem,
the Crown.
Crown, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, right before I moved to America, a month before, me and my brother performed with them.
With the orchestra?
Yeah, we did Sound of Silence and a James Taylor. It was a concert for Emunah. And it was, do you know Simon Cohen? He's a chazan, and I don't remember who else was on the thing, but yeah, it was an unbelievable experience to actually stand on the stage with all these musicians.
And surrounded by this sound.
Yeah.
And so I didn't conduct that.
Okay.
And the reason that I didn't conduct it because I didn't think I was up to it. At that point, I really wasn't. I'm still not a trained conductor, but I felt for this project we should have a trained conductor, and I also thought my tafka would be better if I was listening.
Right.
So I sat in the audience and I listened. But still, that was a dream. It was a dream come true.
Who conducted that?
Mona Rosenblum.
Oh, wow, okay.
He did a good job, we think. And
is that when you met him?
I knew him from before.
Oh, you knew him before.
We want somebody who had experience conducting, but yet understood the music. For the first time, I heard my symphonic arrangements come to life, and it was that certainly was a dream come true.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, she had decided we're gonna do it at the Hask show, and plus some additional arrangements, and he said, and you're conducting.
This was the first Hask show, or
the second Hask show? This was Hask. The first Hask show was a toned down orchestra with string synthesizers.
You did that one as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
But that conducting job is easier. You just count off 1, 2, 3, 4, and the drummer is the conductor.
And then you follow the drummer.
Right.
Let's talk about Hask and the Time for Music. Had there been anything like that before?
Let's pause over here for comments. Comments. For comments. Uri Butler 9187. Hey, shout out to you too. Guys, keep the shout outs and comment below, and I'll get to the comments and give you guys shout outs, answer any questions. If you have just something to say also, just put it in the comment section and I'll get to your comments in between every few minutes of the interview. So keep commenting, keep the comments rolling, and I'll get to you and shout outs and questions, whatever you want to do. The chat is yours. That's what I love about the live streams, is to talk to you guys. So keep the comments flowing.
Count off 1, 2, 3, 4, and the drummer is the conductor.
And then you follow the drummer.
Right.
Let's talk about Hask and the Time for Music. Had there been anything like that before, and how did you get involved?
No.
How did it happen?
There hadn't been anything of that size before. There were concerts. Yigal came in quite a few times and did some nice concerts. Sure. But the idea here was to take the music in our music industry to the next level. But it wasn't just we decided to take the music industry to the next level. There was the hard reality that Camp Hask was about to close down.
Oh, wow.
Because they were losing their funding.
So this was a fundraiser.
So people brainstormed, and I think she and Ding came up with the idea, let's make this really super concert where people are going to come and spend a lot of money on tickets, and they're going to get dressed up in their finest, and we're just going to make a lot of money for Camp HASC. And where are we going to do it? No, not Brooklyn College. We're going to do it in Lincoln Center, which is,
How many people does that hold?
3,300.
Wow.
Whoa.
And there's a cute story for all Chabad Hasidim that when I tell Chabad Hasidim this story, they freak out. The Khans who ran Camp HASC, who ran HASC, they had some connection to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. They weren't Chabad Hasidim, but they would often ask him questions. So when the idea of a concert came up, they wrote a letter to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe answered them, do it, but do it al pi halacha, separate seating. So they started advertising separate seating, and tickets were not moving.
Wow.
Nothing was. This started in, let's say, September. Nothing was selling. And people would say, if I'm going to spend so much money,
I want to sit with my family.
I want to sit with my wife or whatever.
Right.
So, 3 weeks before the show, they wrote a letter to the Rebbe. There are no tickets selling. What should we do? And the Rebbe answered, I already answered your question. Do it al pi halacha, and you can be matzliach.
Wow.
Like a week later, there was just a rush on tickets. And a week before the show, it was completely sold out.
Wow.
So that's...
Nice.
It's probably the longest running.
Nice. There's also a video out there. Let me try to find it. I think it's Shia Mendowitz with the Rebbe. Maybe it's just a picture, but am I... Mendowitz? Rebbe. I'm trying to see. I don't know why, but I feel like there's a video of Shia Mendowitz that went to the Rebbe. Let's see. Trying to find. Oh, yeah, found it. Let me share this tab instead.
We're making a concert tonight at Mietz Hashem for HASC, and it's for the retarded children. And for the concept.
Oy vey! He said a bad word! Sure.
And Matcha Werdiger, Matcha, the singer, he has a very bad cold. He's singing with like a bracha from the Rebbe. Okay. He's conducting the choir tonight in Mietz Hashem by the concert, and he conducts the rabbinical army choir for the Yisroel.
Dan zie je steeds dat ik voor de conducting hier en dat voor de conducting in het zakje.
Amen.
Matata. Dan kan er een zaak naast van de zonde wie tonight.
And he's conducting the Yisroel Lamm. He's conducting the orchestra tonight in Mietz Hashem.
Dan zie je steeds dat ik voor de conducting is special. Wat is het voor? Zie je steeds.
That's really cool. I didn't watch that before, but now I am. There you go. Now I watched it. It's really cool. Really, really cool. All right. How do I go back? Second. There you go. Okay.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, who would have guessed that it would run that long? And it went through generations of producers.
Right.
The torch was handed several times to...
I actually made it on stage at a HASC concert for the first time 3 years ago. And I wasn't just storming the stage. I was actually invited to go on. At Thank You Hashem, we did a song with Avram Fried called Mame. This is actually an example of what I was saying before, how I got in my head that when we did this song, I would love to have a symphony orchestra on it. And I obviously don't have the experience, hear a lot of things in my head. And I sat down and I played in all the parts and the strings and the French horns, sent it to someone and said, whatever needs correcting, correct it. I guess today's version of a copyist. Sent it to Prague. we recorded the song, and I was actually listening back over the internet in real time, and it was just the most, I mean, it's not the same as being in a room, but it was the most unbelievable thing. And I guess I was incredibly grateful that the technology allowed me to get from there to the computer, to Prague, to back. And then at the Haas concert, I played it with Avram Fried, so it was really a special moment. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your relationship with Yigal Salik and London School of Jewish.
Okay, before we get that though, we have some comments. Let's get to the comment section. Guys, just put your comment below. I will give you a shout out, answer questions, whatever you want. At Uri Butler 9187, welcome to A Time for Music 39. Cool. Uri Butler 9187, next year A Time for Music 40, starring Avram Fried and Lipa Schmelzer, YBC, and Eli Gerstner, and Yossi Newman, Benny Friedman, Mordechai Shapiro, Simcha Leiner, and Baruch Levine. I don't think these are confirmed, are they? Let me see. I doubt it was confirmed by now, but I'm just looking. Why not? Just looking. Nah, it doesn't look like it. But anyway. Yeah. So what I want Avram Fried in it, obviously, Lipa Schmelzer would be amazing. Yisroel Boys Choir, I guess, but it's not going to be the same when they did it in the Haas concerts, because there was like tons of different eras of Yisroel Boys Choir, and the classical era was at Hask 18, and then the in-between era was at the other Hasks, and then you have like the modern disco techno era of YBC after those Hask concerts. So I don't know if it'll be the same thing. And Yossi Newman, yeah, shout out to Yossi Newman. And Betty Freeman, yeah, I'll be happy with Betty Freeman Haas. Mordechai Shapiro, again, it just seems like he loses his voice every time he's on concert. But yeah, sure, why not? Simcha Leiner, that'll be pretty cool. And Baruch Levine, absolutely. I've said before that they need to make Haas 40 with Baruch Levine and A.B. Rottenberg playing up opposite each other, just like they did in the other Haas concerts. They need to do that. And it also needs to be a nostalgia fest. And Camp Hask love you. Oh, thank you. They are Hask performers. Yep, they performed in Hask. Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right, guys, keep commenting below. I'll get to the shout-outs and Q&As in between the reactions. So keep commenting, whether it's shout-outs or just topics on Jewish music or just any topic. I'm here for you guys. So just keep the comments flowing.
Concert, I played it with Avram Fried, so it was really a special moment. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your relationship with Yigal Salik and London School of Jewish Song. My father was a soloist in the choir for many years.
Definitely.
And he, in fact, he sent me a recording of a show in Brooklyn College where Yigal announces that there's a very special guest in the crowd that he wants to come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mordechai Werdiger. And my father and MBT did a solo together. Mm-hmm. And he always talks about his shows in Brooklyn, so I'm sure there was some kind of crossover in that period. But if you could tell me about your relationship and that time.
Yeah, well, first of all, Yigal became, besides, we did a lot of music, he became one of my best friends. Actually, the first time we met was in Williamsburg. He happened to be visiting Williamsburg. At that point, I think he just put out the Tzitzis album that was famous, and the Baruch Nafshi or whatever. So we were starting to hear about him, and I had just put out the first Nagina album.
Okay.
So I don't remember what he was doing in Williamsburg. I think he was visiting relatives, and we just happened to be in the same shul, and somebody said, that's Yigal Salik. And so I went over to him.
He was like a superstar celebrity, right?
Well, to the extent that there were superstars in those days. He was just starting to become famous, and I had just put out an album. So some people said, maybe you
guys
should
together.
meet him.
Yeah, okay.
So I went, we said good Shabbos to each other, and that was the end of that. And no, but what we really got to know each other was, I think it was the second year of Stechem. Okay, I'm not sure whether it was the first year or second year. Eli Teitelbaum invited Yigal to come with a bunch of boys to Stechem. And I imagine the intent was to put them on a concert. And that's where I got to know Yigal. We were in camp together. We worked together because we had to put the kids on stage.
Right.
I remember saying, this is it. And I called Isaac Rose, who was that time managing Nagina, and I said, I got something really hot. And I was a shotgun between Isaac and Yigal. When the summer was over, we flew to London. We met, and that's where the first London Nagina album came from.
In London?
We recorded the music in New York.
Each track?
We had 4 tracks.
Wow.
2 tracks for music.
Wow.
And we flew to London with 2 empty tracks. And we went to the studio with the choir. 2 microphones recorded live. And that's where the London Nagina, and that's where our friendship started. And that's where a lot of music, the beginning of a lot of music made together.
Wow. And then the shows that they did in New York, you were involved in all of the shows?
I conducted and arranged them.
Wow.
It was pretty rudimentary level at that point, but that's what the music was. Yigal's music was it was the soul.
What is it about? There's clearly something different and special about those songs. Is it almost like a timeless feel to them? From I guess from 100%. A musical standpoint, is there something that you can put your finger on about his compositions?
They were great melodies. They sounded Jewish, with a little bit of a European flair.
Yep.
It was also Yigal himself. When he got on stage, he really connected with the crowd, and the way the kids sounded, that British accent.
By the way, you kind of see that common denominator with most people that were in charge of concerts, whether it was Yigal Salik, who is the standard of the peak of choir and music and concerts and energy and connection with the audience, like all of that wrapped around. But you kind of see how the same thing is with Yerachmiel Begun, how he was it with the crowd and the choir. And it almost makes you wonder that there has to be something in the fact that when you have a choir, but not only have a choir, you've been successful for many years of doing a choir in Jewish music, that something inside of you, because of how much you work with these kids, makes you enjoy the fact of how much you also connect with the audience and with the experience of the audience. I mean, that was the Miami experience. That was the whole goal of it. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just the fact that you were watching a Miami Boys Choir concert, because what made those different than any other Miami Boys Choir concert that he ever did, is the fact that it was very immersive with the audience and the feedback and the energy. Like, it was an experience. And I feel like it's interesting how you only kind of have that when you have the boys choir concerts, like Yigal Salik with his choir and Yerachmiel Begun with Miami Boys Choir.
I always think that the accent changes the voice. Like, you hear somebody singing with an American accent, singing a pop song, it sounds one way, but send that guy over to France and sing it in French, it's not the same voice. It's a different voice.
Quality, right?
Yeah, and I think that's, everybody was charmed by the way the kids sounded with the British accent, but I think it was more than the British accent. Their voices changed.
Right.
And the kids were good.
Right.
They were adorable. It was just a great show. And there were other choirs forming at the time, but Yigal had them all beat on every level.
See, England's not good for nothing, right?
No, that was great.
The Beatles and London School of Jewish Song.
I was there. I spent quite a bit of time in London, with Yigal. Yeah, it was great.
Wow.
maybe you get into, if I may get into a little
Please.
off, not off topic, but expand on the topic a little bit. Yigal felt very strongly that songs should sound Jewish. Jewish with maybe a more European flavor than we were used to, but he hated the songs that sounded Goyish. Now, there were even Goyish songs that sounded Jewish.
Yeah, it makes you also wonder, like, what would Yitzhak sound like? I mean, he did pass away only recently, but still, like, what did he think about, like, music nowadays? Of the fact that you have so much, it's not like, I'm not like one of those people that's like, modern music just sounds Goyish. I think there's an aspect where Jewish music the industry has been so much bigger than ever, to the point where you have so many different genres of different aspects, including genres of people that make music, Jewish music, that end up sounding like Jewish music, whether they on purpose did so, or it just casually happened because of the fact of how much genres and singers and productions and compositions we have in this world of Jewish music.
You know, we're getting all mixed up. So I think some of the songs that he liked and some of the songs that he performed or he composed were inspired by, European songs and songs that he grew up with. But he always wanted them to sound Jewish. And I think as Yidden, we like Jewish songs. What a Jewish song is, that's a...
Oh, well, that was my next question, and it's the name of the podcast, which is what is Jewish music? Before
he answers, I 100% agree with what A.B. Rottenberg said in his song. But one thing we must keep in mind, a Jewish song of any kind is only precious if and when it brings us closer to Hashem. I agree with him 100% on that aspect, and I would add to it, and it's made by, if it's made by a Jewish artist, both in composition and singing. Because maybe there are people, which I think is wrong, find that there is music that brings them closer to Hashem if it's like classical or cantor and it's not Jewish or not sung by Jewish artists. And I think that's wrong. I think there's more to just logical, but there's more pneumistic aspects of when you have music sung by a Jewish singer, composed by a Jewish singer, and also with the aspect of what Aaron Rottenberg says, and if the song brings you closer to Hashem.
If you had to, I guess if you had to answer that, because you said just now, I think you said Jewish songs or it sounds Jewish, but ultimately what is, when we say to kids we want you to listen to Jewish music?
All right, so I'm going to give you an answer. This answer didn't come just now.
Okay.
It's the result of discussing these things over a long period of time. We discuss it among ourselves in the industry.
Sure.
Because to many people in our industry, it's important that it sound Jewish, that it be Jewish. And we know that that Goyish songs have made their way into our lives, and the question is that good or bad? This is what I think. Poetry says what prose can't say, right? Music, somebody said this, I didn't say this, somebody said this, some wise man said this. Music says what poetry can't even say. You can't put what music says into words. You can say, it reminds me of this, or the composer means to depict something like that, but that's really scratching the surface. What music is really saying can't be put into words. And, what Beethoven actually meant when he went ba-ba-ba-bum, you could say, well, fate is knocking on the door, but it pales to what it really says. And I think that Jewish music tells us what it feels to be a Yid. We go to shul, we daven, we shake a little, we do that, but that doesn't really tell us what we feel collectively, what we feel it means to be a Yid. You could say it means There's a warm feeling, there's a Heimish feeling, but that's all, again, it's just scratching the surface.
Right.
And why is the Baal Tshuva movement so successful with music? Because that's the way we can bring Balei Tshuva in. This is what it feels like to be a Yid.
100%. I mean, even though I don't necessarily like Zusha's music, not him, I think he's an amazing artist, but his music necessarily. But and I don't, and Eighth Day I love. I grew to love them more as time goes on. I think what makes them so successful though is because they have captured that audience that wants to feel more spiritual. Mainly the Baal Tshuva audience, but also just people who are kind of getting lost in their own spiritual or mental or physical aspect. They are drawn to that music because those artists have that in their hearts when they're singing that music, and also what they're coming up with is drawn to that audience. And once you capture that side of the audience of the Balei Tshuva and people that want to feel more spiritual, you're bringing that whole side of the audience with you, because that fan base is so strong and they're huge.
So a Jewish song gives you that feeling of what it means to be a Yid, which a Goy song doesn't do. A Goy song gives you a different feeling. Mm-hmm. It might be what it means to be a Frenchman, what it means to be a Russian, or what it means to be a rock star. But it doesn't tell you. So Yigal always had that idea in mind. It's got to feel Jewish. It's got to be able, I've got to get on stage, feel this, and project this to the audience.
I love that. All right, before we finish up the podcast reaction, let's get to some more of the comments. Uri Butler 9187, Joey Newcomb. Oh, that's what you were saying about Hask. Yeah, if he's in Hask 40, I wouldn't mind. Rebecca Edel 4045, what is the movie which you were on set called? I'm not sure what it's called. He told me, but I forgot. But once I find out, I'll post it on under that video. Will it be English dubbed? I don't know. I know Yigal Hoshiar, the producer and the director, wants to go into dubbing and translating the videos he's made over the past 10, 20 years that after Green Tech finished doing so. But we'll see. Hopefully it will be on YouTube like the other films made by Shel Kedusha. They don't put their films on YouTube. They only put the trailers, maybe one or two videos, but they're all on his website via subscription model. Uri Butler 9187, and Sholem Lemmer. Yeah. Sholem Lemmer, he's amazing. He has a good audience, concert presence and performer. I do hate though when sometimes it's less than more times it happens when he has the sorry, I don't know why I'm coughing so much. When he has the pre-recorded soundtracks instead of the band playing 100% of the track. But it's sad. It's just sad. Rebecca Edel 4045, I think my voice choir is better than London School. Okay, that's your opinion. I do wonder though, is there a legitimate aspect of why you do, or is it because mainly they were more recent and because they had a longer span of eras and concerts and albums and songs than London, so therefore you kind of feel more connected to it in nostalgia, but also because of just how much more content there is. There's a different aspect that could be more. Rebecca Edel 4045. Excuse me. They have a lot more history, like I said. And if you didn't know, they had a choir before this called the Toronto Boys Choir. But I think their newer songs have to be better. I can't, if you want to go by ratio of Miami or Toronto, I think the ratio of how much better songs Toronto have than mediocre songs, I think Toronto wins than Miami. But yeah, if you're a reason why you like Miami more than London, is because of how they have much more longer years of content. I don't see how that's a legitimate reason of saying why they're better, but I can see why you like them better. Like, a person would like something better if they spend more time with it. You can have, if let's say you have 10 books talking about a story of a bad guy versus one book telling a story of a good guy, even though you're going to like the good guy more than the evil guy, but you are going to connect more with the evil guy because you spent more time in reading about him, and there's more books and material about it. I'm not saying that that when it comes to Miami and London, one is bad, one is good, but when it comes to connecting to them more, there is a big advantage to Miami Boys Choir because of how much more content they do have. Rebecca Edel 4045. They have to get the genre they had in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, early Miami was much better. Rebecca Edel 4045. Zusha's songs are actually better than their old songs. Their old songs are terrible. Could be. I'm not that well versed into Zusha songs, so I don't know. I honestly don't know. Rebecca Edel 4045. I love your live stream. Oh, thank you. Nati Brody 49. So happy to be here. Thank you for joining, Nati. Rebecca Edel 4045. Miami Boys Choir song are also just better, meaning their old songs. I love this live stream. Miami Boys Choir song are also just better, meaning their old songs. Yeah, their old songs are, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. Like, if you're saying Miami Boys Choir songs are better, but when you're talking about Miami Boys Choir, you're talking about their old songs, yeah. But if you want to say as a whole, their new songs are better than their old songs. Sorry, their old songs are better than the new songs. That's just how it is. Rebecca Edel 4045. I love this live stream. Thank you very much. Guys, this is your last chance to put comments because we're finishing up the live stream. So if you want me to give you a shout out, answer your questions, or talk about your comments or your topics that you just want to talk about, whether it's music or just anything else, just comment below and I'll get to it after we are finished because we are finishing now. So now's the time to put in your comments.
So that's the best I can do.
No, I like that. I like that answer. What are you currently working on?
What am I currently?
Yeah, like music-wise.
Okay, so I do arrangements for chuppahs.
Nice.
I work basically for the Aaron Teitelbaum Orchestra. But,
okay.
And when there's a large chuppah, it needs arrangements. You can't just throw a bunch of musicians and have them play the same thing. So I do quite a bit of that. And albums. There's still albums being recorded.
Right.
And still some studio work going on. Where that changed is that where I used to spend half of my life in the studio, now I just send the parts to musicians who are recording in their basements, which you know about that well.
Yep. Do you still get a kick out of it? Does it still excite you?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah?
Yes.
Well, I don't think there are many things like that. You started this when you were 20, you said? So I'm not going to ask you exactly how many years you've been doing it for, but I don't know many other industries. I don't think there are a lot of accountants that can say, hey, I'm still excited by this, or I'm still, I'm going to, if you're writing a chuppah for something next week and it still gives you this feeling of this emotional, warm feeling, kind of, almost a little taste of standing in front of a symphony orchestra, that most other jobs, I imagine, it just goes after a while, which is pretty.
Well, I think that's where people who work in the arts are fortunate. It's not just music. It could be painting, could be writing,
right?
Anything creative. You constantly want to grow. You constantly want to do something better.
Sure.
So, and you loved it all the years that you were doing it. You want to keep on doing it. Right. They say that, I'm going to retire, I'm going to take up a hobby. But this was always my hobby. Maybe I got paid for it sometimes. But I tell people, let's say if I'm going to work till 7 o'clock, So from 9 to 5 I work, and from 5 to 7 I'm doing my hobby.
Right. Is there any advice that you have for, I don't know, a young person who wants to do either conducting or arranging today? What would you tell them?
Well, obviously, go to school, learn your craft.
Okay.
It'll save you a lot of heartache. Only do it if you love it.
Yep, 100%.
And Ayn Rand, the author, so I read everything she wrote. The Fountainhead, I thought especially speaks to us, speaks to artists. And she said, don't do something for a living that you love, because they're going to take advantage of you. And they do, they try to. As long as you're aware of that,
Right.
either, stick to your guns or hire a good manager.
Right.
But otherwise, make sure that you really love it, because other than, that they may try to take advantage of you, it's not always going to go good. When you brought up the example of an accountant, so I'll use that.
Sorry to all the accountants. I mean,
I have a brother who's an accountant. He loves it.
Okay, there you go. Maybe I'm wrong.
He's still doing it. He loves it.
Okay.
We put our souls into what we do. We take ourselves very seriously. So when an accountant does a return and it's not that great, so, right, that's what I think. So the client pays a little bit more than he should have paid. But when we work hard on a project and it doesn't work out, or like you do an arrangement and you get up in front of the orchestra, start playing it, and you say to yourself, this really doesn't sound that good. It's tough.
Right.
I remember one Hask show that, okay, I thought this was cute. We would do a Hask show, and then I'd go to the parking lot to pick up my car. And everybody would stop by, hey, Yisroel, it was great. It was a great show. Good job, shkayach, whatever, whether they meant it or not, it was nice. It was one year that I went to the parking lot, and my wife said to me, nobody's coming over. The show basically bombed.
Wow.
It was Hask 7,
Whoa.
and we tried to do a play. And
What? Has 7 bombed? Has 7 is the top, not mine, just in general, it's one of the most beloved concerts ever. It bombed? It's crazy how much times you do a project, both in music and just anything else. At the moment of when it comes out, people love it, and then it fizzles out. And then there's other concerts where people just go, and then there's a cult following that follows it. Same thing happened with Yehuda Grovice. I was talking to Yehuda Grovice, and I mentioned how there was a video that was my top favorite of his movies. And he said that at the time, people hated it, and it bombed, and he got backlash of it. And I'm like, really? For that film, you got backlash? Same thing with this. Has 7? Really? No way. That is insane.
there were two things wrong with it. One is that it was just so much work that we never really finished.
It never fit. Okay, listen. I'm gonna let him finish his point. 1 second.
Okay.
We never were able to finish it. And so we learned a lesson that putting on a Broadway style show is really something.
Big deal.
Yeah. You can't take that lightly.
But I personally loved it. I think it really paid off. I can't believe. Wow.
And the other thing was people didn't get the perception that there was enough music. They thought there was too much talking and acting. And that's really not true. I can testify that there was probably more music prepared for that show than any other Hask show. But people didn't get that perception.
More prepared than other hash shows in the fact of preparing and production and the way to perform that music was so much better than other concerts. Again, I'm not saying the way it came out. I'm saying the production arrangement and the part of it where it was where the performance of the orchestra, I think there was much more the complication is not in a bad way. Complication in preciseness and what you want to showcase in your music more than the other concerts. I can't believe he's saying how it bombed.
So that show basically bombed. And that's tough when you when you work for so long and you put your heart and soul into it. So I would tell young people, you really got to love it because they're going to be bumps in the road.
Sure. Is there a part of you that ever feels almost like, I don't know, that most of what you do is behind the scenes and there's almost a lack of recognition, not from a place of ego, but, these albums come out and people go over to the singer and they're like, that was an unbelievable album. Meanwhile, someone like you has probably spent, I don't know how many hundreds of hours working on it. Does that ever bother you, that dynamic?
No.
Has it ever bothered you?
No.
Okay.
And some people say that it should. And I'm not proving a Nevis or anything like that. But the way I always looked at it was the biggest joy is in doing it, in creating it. The biggest covet that you can give me is hiring me to do a concert or an album. What comes after that comes. But that's where my joy is. My joy is sitting in that office across the street and doing the arrangement. First of all, when I finish an arrangement and I hear it back on the computer, or in the olden days when I heard it back in my head, it was perfect. Every note was played correctly.
Right.
When you give it to real people to play, that's when it's downhill. So that's really where the joy and the fun is in the creative process. So what happens after that? When I did my first album, it was horrible. It was terrible. I was so embarrassed about it. But it was good enough that they wanted me to do another one.
Right.
And that's all I needed.
Yep.
And there's a curse that we have. I've spoken to other people in similar situations. We have a curse. The curse is that it never comes out the way we expected it or we hoped that it was going to be. And some people handle that by just doing it over and over again. But, it's like getting on the treadmill.
Right.
Some people I work with are like that. And I tell them, I said, leave that for the next album.
Right.
Let's get this album out. But I think almost by definition, we're cursed in that sense, is because every time you do a job, every time you do something, you've learned something.
Sure.
And you started here, and when the project is finished, you know so much more.
Right.
But yet the project is based on what you knew then.
Right.
So you want to do more, you want to do better. So even when you finish a project, it's satisfaction. A lot of the satisfaction is missing. I always say, I don't want to hear it for 6 months because
I know that feeling.
you heal.
Right. I think it's also it's almost like a record or a stamp of this is who I was and what I did at that point. And I know a lot of artists who will work on an album for 10 years because during those 10 years they're trying to perfect it, but I can guarantee that 5 or 10 years after that they're not going to necessarily like that anyway. So I think that there has to be an element of letting go at a certain point and saying this is it, this is what I'm able to make right now, this is the best that I have. And then not overthinking it sometimes, saying this is my offering.
Yeah, again, leave that what you learned for the next album.
Yeah.
But you're gonna go through the same thing again on the next album. But still, enjoy it while you're doing it.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you again for taking this long journey across the street.
Thanks for having me.
And it really is I've had this on my list for a while to meet you and get to talk to you. So thank you.
Yeah, nice. Certainly nice meeting you too.
You too.
Nice. That was nice. Pretty cool. Good job, Mendy. Good job. Bro, the fly. All right. Let's get it to comments. The last comments of the evening. Drop the comments below so I can read through and give you shout outs and answer any questions. Rebecca Adele 4045. They are better than English School of Jewish Song. Again, that's your opinion. I'm not saying it is better. I'm just saying I'm not really putting one over the other because there's a lot of different aspects to judge upon. So, sure. Rebecca Liddell 4045. Also, I meant that NBC song in the 80s and 90s are just better than the London School of Jewish Song. Again, I won't necessarily compare eras. I would compare songs because I bet you there's a lot of songs that I personally think that London Jewish Boys Choir are much better than half the songs in the 80s and 90s. But again, it's very tough to decide. Rebecca Edel 4045. Do like their song Susha Arden through though the London School of Jewish Song. I don't know if I had heard that one, but it could be. Rebecca Edel 4045. I like to call #7 a time for plays. What does I have here? There you go. There you go. Much better. Rebecca Adele 4045. I think the main thing that HASC concerts should be is an orchestra. Like, for example, the HASC opening. By the way, we need to see Yisroel Lamm do the orchestrating that then. Or again. Yeah, 100%. HASC should stay with the orchestra. No digitizing or changing the aspects or playing pre-recorded arrangements. It has to be purely the orchestra. That's it. And especially the opening. The recent HASC has lost its respect for the orchestra and for the opening and for the theme that's infused in the opening. Maybe once or twice it was cool, but the rest of them has been awful. Not that they didn't play the opening, but that they didn't treat it as oomph and big as they used to be with Yisroel Lamm. And we need to see Yisroel Lamm do orchestrating. That would be cool. I don't know if he will do it because he hasn't been doing that for a while, and he does like very few here and there. He does more production side of things. But if he it would be cool if HASC 40, if he says he won't do a whole concert, at least we need to get him to do to conduct and do an orchestra for at least the opening for the overture. We need at least that. Rebecca Edel 4045. I'm just saying the NBC is better than now. 100%. All right, guys. Thank you so much for commenting and joining this live stream. It was pretty cool to listen to Yisroel Lamm. I would love to have Yisroel Lamm on the podcast. If someone could reach out to me and send me a contact or something to get in touch with him, I would love to do a podcast episode with him. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. And please subscribe and share this whoever you want. Whoever you can. We need to get this channel. We have 500 subscribers, over 500 subscribers, which is amazing. But also I really would love to monetize the channel. And the way to monetize it is that we need more eyes to watch the content here. So please share the channel, subscribe. Please send it to whoever you can. We would love these types of content, both in this channel and the other channel. And stay tuned for more. We have some podcast episodes. I have one episode I'm editing, another episode I'm currently filming, and other people that said yes, but we just have to finalize a date with them to interview them. There's more live streams, especially 3 weeks and 9 days. We have more live streams because we can't do the reactions. And there's other projects that I'm working on for the summer that stay tuned for those to come out. It would be amazing. One of the final comments we have here, Rebecca Edel 4045. I said before that Nisir Shah doesn't put the films in YouTube. Other people do. Yes, it's a shame. I mean, these people work very hard to make these projects. I'll say for myself, when I was younger, I did stupid things too, and I've done things that are outright Geneva. I have apologized and asked to these people and to the people that make them, and I also I appreciate and I also wish that we had a society where people don't have to steal or cause other people to steal, because when people put this stuff on YouTube, when they're supposed to be bought and other people watch it, you are not just also causing the fact that they're losing money, but you're also causing other people to do the Avera because of what you initiated as a chain reaction. So, however way I could try to support these people that made these projects through the channel and just helping them out in the behind the scenes, I am more than happy to. And I think people as the audience, have to be more appreciative with respecting people that make these videos, whether they're good videos or not. I think they have to be more respectful for these people in a way that we could also support this industry, because that is why music has been, there was a phase of music and Jewish videos where there was things not happening because of, unfortunately, these people do that. Rebecca Edel 4045, no, I don't like to buy the films. I want to watch them on YouTube. I am a kid. Whether you're saying that as a joke, haha, but in all seriousness, that is no way to look at things. All right. That is not. All right, guys. We are done for today. Thank you so much for joining. See you next week or very soon with the more projects that we come out. And thank you so much for joining us. I think that's it for today. Have a good day. Live, live, live. Uziel's live. For you to join along. Live, live, live. Uziel's live. For you to join along.